Chapter 1: The Arrival. The spacecraft, Pioneer 1, descended slowly onto the red Martian soil, kicking up clouds of fine dust that swirled in the thin atmosphere. The first wave of human settlers on Mars had finally arrived. For years, Earth had been preparing for this moment, training astronauts, designing advanced habitats, and ensuring every possible precaution was taken. The colonists were a diverse group of scientists, engineers, and explorers, all united by a common goal: to establish a human presence on the Red Planet. As the landing module touched down, Commander Evelyn Carter felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. This was the culmination of decades of work, yet she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Mars was a hostile environment, and despite all the preparation, the unknown loomed large. "All right, team." Evelyn's voice crackled over the comms. "Let's make history." The crew began unloading equipment and setting up the habitat modules. Solar panels were deployed and communication arrays were activated, establishing a link back to Earth. Everything was proceeding according to plan until Dr. Liam O'Connor, the mission's lead biologist, made a discovery that would change everything. Chapter 2: The Anomaly. While taking soil samples near the landing site, Liam noticed something strange. Amidst the barren, rocky landscape, he found a patch of soil that was distinctly different, darker, almost black, and slightly moist. This was unusual, given Mars' arid conditions. "Liam to Evelyn," he radioed in. "I found something odd. Could you come take a look?" Evelyn and Dr. May Lin, the mission's geologist, joined Liam at the site. May ran some preliminary tests on the soil and frowned. "This is definitely not normal Martian soil," she said. "There's something organic about it." "Organic," Evelyn repeated, her heart skipping a beat. "Are you saying?" "It's too early to draw conclusions," Liam interrupted. "But we need to take this back to the lab for further analysis." As they returned to the habitat, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something significant, something that might indicate life on Mars. Chapter 3: Signs of Life. Back in the lab, Liam and May worked tirelessly to analyze the samples. What they discovered was both astonishing and alarming. The soil contained microscopic organisms, simple, yet undeniably alive. They weren't like anything seen on Earth, but their biological makeup suggested they were capable of surviving in the harsh Martian environment. "Life on Mars," Liam whispered, almost in disbelief. "This changes everything." The discovery sent shockwaves through the colony. The implications were staggering. If life existed on Mars, what did it mean for humanity's role on the planet? Could these organisms be harmful? The questions were endless. Commander Carter convened an emergency meeting with the crew. "We need to proceed with extreme caution," she said. "This is the most significant discovery in human history, but it also presents unknown risks. We must quarantine these organisms and study them thoroughly before making any further decisions." The crew agreed, but the excitement was palpable. They had come to Mars to explore and colonize, but now they were faced with something far more profound. Chapter 4: The Encounter. As the days passed, the crew continued their work, but the discovery weighed heavily on their minds. Then, something even more unsettling occurred. One night, while on a routine patrol around the habitat, engineer Sarah Kim noticed a strange glow emanating from a nearby rock formation. At first, she thought it was a reflection from the solar panels, but as she approached, she realized the light was coming from within the rocks themselves. "Commander, you need to see this," Sarah radioed in, her voice tense. Evelyn and a few other crew members rushed to the site. The glowing rocks pulsed with a soft, blue light, unlike anything they had encountered before. As they observed, the light grew brighter, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. "Everyone, back to the habitat," Evelyn ordered, her voice sharp. They retreated to the safety of the habitat, but the ground continued to shake. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the tremor stopped and the light faded. The crew was left in stunned silence. What the hell was that? Dr. Raj Patel, the mission's physicist, asked, breaking the silence. I don't know, Evelyn replied, her mind racing. But whatever it was, it's connected to those organisms we found. We need to be prepared for anything. Chapter 5: The Awakening. Over the next few days, strange occurrences became more frequent. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably, and crew members reported hearing faint, eerie sounds outside the habitat. The Martian environment, once thought to be barren and lifeless, now seemed alive with hidden dangers. Liam continued his research on the organisms, but his findings only deepened the mystery. The microbes were rapidly evolving, adapting to the conditions in the lab at an alarming rate. They appeared to be responding to their surroundings in ways that defied all known biological principles. They're not just surviving, Liam explained during a briefing. They're thriving. It's as if they're waking up. Evelyn's concern grew. The colony was on the brink of making contact with a potentially intelligent alien species, and they were woefully unprepared. We need to get word back to Earth, Evelyn decided. They need to know what's happening here. But as they attempted to send a transmission, the communication systems went down. The crew was cut off from Earth, isolated on a planet that was becoming increasingly hostile. Chapter 6: The Revelation. With no way to communicate with Earth, the crew had no choice but to confront the situation on their own. Tensions were high, and fear began to take hold. But amidst the uncertainty, Liam made a breakthrough. After days of intense study, he discovered that the organisms were not native to Mars. Their DNA was too complex, too advanced. They had been brought here, possibly millions of years ago, by an unknown force. They're not just Martian microbes, Liam explained. They're part of a larger ecosystem, one that we don't understand yet. And I think they're trying to communicate with us. This revelation sent shockwaves through the crew. If the organisms were trying to communicate, what were they saying? And who, or what, had brought them to Mars? Chapter 7: The Encounter. The crew's worst fears were realized when the organisms began to change. The microbes, once confined to the lab, started to grow and spread throughout the habitat. They formed intricate patterns on the walls and floors, pulsating with the same blue light Sarah had seen in the rocks. One night, the patterns coalesced into a shape, vaguely humanoid, yet distinctly alien. The crew watched in horror as the figure moved, its glowing eyes fixed on them. "Stay back," Evelyn shouted, but the figure made no aggressive moves. Instead, it raised a hand, if it could be called that, and a wave of energy swept through the room. The crew felt a sudden surge of emotions, fear, curiosity, and an overwhelming sense of connection. It was as if the figure was trying to communicate through their minds. "We are not alone," the figure seemed to say, though no words were spoken. "We are the Guardians. We have been here long before you, and we will remain long after." Chapter 8: The Decision. The encounter left the crew shaken but determined. They realized that the organisms were not malevolent. They were simply protecting their world from intruders. Mars was not just a barren wasteland. It was home to an ancient and powerful force. Evelyn knew they had to make a choice. They could continue their mission, risking conflict with the Guardians, or they could leave Mars and warn Earth of the dangers that lay ahead. "We came here to explore," Evelyn said in a final meeting with her crew. "But we have to respect this world and the life that exists here. We need to leave and let Earth know what we've found." The crew agreed. They began preparations to leave Mars, but as they did, the figure reappeared. This time, it conveyed a message of peace and understanding. "Go and tell your people," it seemed to say. "But know this: Mars is not yours to conquer. It is a place of life, and it will defend itself if necessary. Chapter 9: The Return. The journey back to Earth was somber. The crew had set out to colonize Mars, but they returned with a deeper understanding of the universe and their place in it. They had discovered life on Mars, but it was not the life they had expected. As they re-entered Earth's atmosphere, Evelyn couldn't help but think of the Guardians. They were a reminder that humanity was not alone in the cosmos and that there were forces beyond their understanding that deserved respect. When they finally landed, they were greeted as heroes. But the crew knew that their mission was just the beginning. They had uncovered secrets that would change the course of human history, and it was up to them to ensure those secrets were not forgotten. Epilogue: The Message. Years later, as Earth prepared for its next mission to Mars, Evelyn Carter stood before a crowd of scientists and leaders. She recounted the story of their encounter with the Guardians and the message they had received. "We are not alone," she said, "and we must approach the cosmos with humility and respect. Mars is not ours to claim. It is a world that belongs to others, just as Earth belongs to us." The audience was silent, taking in the gravity of her words. The future of space exploration had changed, and humanity was now aware of the greater mysteries that awaited them among the stars. As the session ended, Evelyn looked up at the night sky, where Mars shone brightly. She knew that the Guardians were watching, and she vowed that Earth would heed their message. Chapter 10: The Awakening on Earth. Several years had passed since the crew of Pioneer 1 had returned to Earth, and the world had not been the same since. The scientific community was abuzz with the implications of the discovery on Mars. The existence of the Guardians had sparked a global debate about humanity's role in the universe and the ethics of space exploration. Governments and corporations, eager to capitalize on the new frontier, were pushing forward with plans for future missions. But not everyone was convinced that Earth should continue its quest to colonize Mars. Dr. Evelyn Carter had become a leading voice in the debate, advocating for a cautious and respectful approach to space exploration. She had written books, given lectures, and even testified before the United Nations, urging humanity to learn from their encounter with the Guardians. Yet, despite her efforts, the momentum for further exploration was growing. One day, while speaking at an international conference, Evelyn received an urgent message from Dr. Liam O'Connor. "Evelyn, we need to talk. Something's happening. Something we didn't anticipate." Chapter 11: The Silent Invasion. Liam explained that since their return from Mars, there had been reports of strange occurrences across the globe, unexplained phenomena that mirrored the events they had experienced on Mars. Glowing patterns had been sighted in remote areas, and scientists were detecting unusual energy signatures in the Earth's atmosphere. Most troubling of all, there were reports of people experiencing vivid dreams and visions, as if being contacted by something beyond Earth. "I believe the Guardians are reaching out to us," Liam said. "They might be trying to communicate, or worse, warn us." Evelyn's mind raced. If the Guardians were active on Earth, it could mean they were trying to prevent humanity from making the same mistakes on Mars. But how were they able to influence events on Earth? And what did they want? "We need to investigate this," Evelyn said. "We need to understand what they're trying to tell us before it's too late." Chapter 12: The Global Coalition. Evelyn and Liam quickly mobilized a team of scientists and experts from around the world. They formed the Global Coalition for Guardian Research, GCGR, a multinational task force dedicated to studying the phenomena and deciphering the messages from the Guardians. The coalition operated in secrecy, knowing that public knowledge of their findings could incite fear and panic. As the team investigated, they discovered that the energy signatures detected on Earth were remarkably similar to those on Mars. The Guardians were not just limited to one planet, they seemed to have a presence across the solar system, possibly even beyond. Meanwhile, governments and corporations were moving forward with their plans to return to Mars. A new mission, Pioneer 2, was already in the final stages of preparation. But Evelyn knew they were rushing into unknown territory without understanding the full implications. "We have to stop this mission," Evelyn insisted during a meeting with the GSGR. "We need more time to understand what's happening before we send more people to Mars." But stopping the mission was easier said than done. Powerful interests were at play, and the desire to exploit Mars resources was too great to ignore. Chapter 13. The First Contact. As the coalition continued its work, they made a breakthrough. Using advanced technology, they were able to establish a form of communication with the Guardians. The process was rudimentary, relying on patterns of light and sound, but it was enough to convey basic messages. The Guardians' response was both cryptic and ominous. "You are not ready. The path you seek leads to destruction." The message sent chills through the team. It confirmed their fears that humanity's attempts to colonize Mars could have catastrophic consequences, not just for Earth, but for the entire solar system. "We have to convince the world to listen," Liam said, his voice filled with urgency. "If we don't, we could be facing an extinction-level event." Chapter 14. The Last Warning. Despite their efforts, the Pioneer 2 mission was launched. Evelyn and the Coalition watched helplessly as the spacecraft departed Earth, knowing that it could trigger a response from the Guardians. The situation grew more dire as reports emerged of Guardian-like activity on Mars increasing in intensity. The glowing patterns had spread across the surface, forming massive, intricate designs that could be seen from space. In a desperate move, Evelyn and the Coalition decided to reveal their findings to the world. They organized a global broadcast showing the evidence of the Guardians' warnings and the potential danger of continuing the mission. The broadcast was met with mixed reactions. Some believed the Coalition, while others dismissed it as fearmongering. As the world debated, Pioneer 2 reached Mars. But as it entered orbit, the crew lost contact with Earth. The last transmission from the spacecraft was filled with static, but one word was clearly heard: awakening. Chapter 15. The Return of the Guardians. The loss of Pioneer 2 sent shockwaves through the world. Panic spread as people feared the worst, that the Guardians had acted to prevent humanity from further intrusions. Governments scrambled to respond, grounding all space missions and focusing on defense. But the Guardians did not launch an attack. Instead, they appeared in places across Earth, their glowing forms becoming more visible and active. They seemed to be everywhere at once, observing, waiting. Evelyn and the Coalition were at a loss. They had tried to warn the world, but it seemed that the Guardians were preparing for something much bigger than anyone had anticipated. Then, without warning, the Guardians spoke again. This time, their message was broadcast across all communication networks, in every language. "You have been warned. The time of reckoning is near. You must choose coexistence or extinction." Chapter 16. The Final Choice. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The Guardians had given them a choice, but it was unclear what the terms of coexistence would be. Some leaders called for immediate negotiations with the Guardians, while others argued for a show of strength to protect Earth's sovereignty. Evelyn knew that a military response would be disastrous. The Guardians had demonstrated power far beyond human understanding, and any act of aggression could lead to annihilation. "We need to show them that we are willing to coexist," Evelyn said during a meeting with world leaders. "We need to prove that we can respect their boundaries and learn from them." The world was divided, but in the end, a consensus was reached. A global peace initiative was launched, and the leaders of Earth extended an invitation to the Guardians to establish a dialogue. Chapter 17. The New Era. The Guardians accepted the invitation, and for the first time, they revealed themselves fully to humanity. They were not hostile, but their presence was overwhelming. They communicated not through words, but through emotions and visions, conveying a sense of ancient wisdom and deep connection to the cosmos. In the days that followed, the world underwent a profound transformation. The Guardians shared knowledge that reshaped humanity's understanding of the universe. They helped to heal the planet, restoring ecosystems and reversing the damage caused by centuries of industrialization. But the Guardians also made it clear that humanity's future was in its own hands. They would not interfere directly, but they would watch, and they would respond if necessary. Evelyn Carter became a symbol of the new era, a leader who had guided humanity through its darkest hour and into a future of hope and possibility. The encounter with the Guardians had changed everything, but it had also given humanity a second chance. As Evelyn looked out at the stars one final time, she felt a deep sense of peace. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but now she knew that humanity was not alone. They were part of a greater whole, connected to life across the cosmos in ways they were only beginning to understand. And with that understanding came a new responsibility, to protect not just their own world, but all life, wherever it might be found.